On the day the Pei family was raided, the eldest princess ordered that Pei Zai's hands be crushed, forbidding him from ever holding a pen again. Yet he used my family's influence to become regent, wielding absolute power over the court, only to keep her locked away in a golden house, never allowing her to leave his side. Every time I raised my doubts, he coldly replied, "No, you don't understand. I've hated her for so many years. Making her remain unmarried and lose her freedom is the best revenge I could give her." It wasn't until I was kidnapped by his political enemies and died in the chaos of the palace coup that I realized the truth. He and she ascended to the throne together. Only then did I understand that she had always been the bright moon in his heart. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn and returned to the day when the Pei family was raided. Song Qinghwan was once again commanding the imperial guards to block Pei Zai. As I passed by the Pei mansion, I casually swallowed a piece of sweet cake, feeling incredibly joyful. No one knew how delightful the sound of Pei Zai's broken bones was. Chapter 1. Miss. The Emperor's verdict has been issued. The Pei family is to be punished by copying today, and the princess has personally gone there to teach Pei Gongzi a lesson. Should you go see Mr. Pei? Plead for mercy on his behalf? Shuangwen reminded me, her voice filled with concern. A wave of excitement surged through my heart, and I couldn't suppress a laugh. "Miss." Seeing me crying and laughing, Shuangwen called out to me in worry. I suppressed the joy in my heart and wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes. "Shuangwen, are my mother and father well?" "Miss. What's wrong with you? The general and the lady are still safe in Nan'an City." I gripped her wrist tightly and asked urgently again, "What about my brother?" Shuangwen looked puzzled, and my face was pale as a sheet. She murmured in shock, "The young general is stationed in Nan'an City. Last night, the mansion received a letter from him assuring everyone of his safety." "Good. Now that I've been reborn, this time, that damned Pei Zai will definitely get what he deserves." "Miss, you don't look well. Should we still go see young Master Pei?" I calmed down and said firmly, "Let's go. Not only must we go, but we must fan the flames. Let the fire in the princess's heart burn even brighter." Pei Zai and I were childhood sweethearts. Half a year ago, he entered the palace to attend Princess Song Qinghwan's birthday banquet. At the banquet, the princess presented a painting for everyone to admire and invited Pei Zai, renowned for his literary talent, to appraise it, perhaps to attract the princess's attention. After appraising the painting, Pei Zai dared to offer to teach her how to paint, but he didn't know that the painting was actually drawn by Song Qinghwan herself. By openly teaching her to paint, he was clearly implying that the painting was inferior. Princess Song Qinghwan, who was accustomed to being praised, could not tolerate such words. She lost face but, relying on the power of the Pei family, she did not show it outwardly. It was not until today, when the Pei family was implicated in a crime and their estate was seized, that Princess Song Qinghwan heard the news and immediately rushed over with her guards. In my previous life, I remembered that Pei Zai and I were childhood sweethearts. I begged my father to secretly rescue him back to the border city and guide him back onto the right path. But I never imagined it would lead to the downfall of my entire family. In my previous life, after the young emperor ascended the throne and Pei Zai became the regent, he initially feared our family's influence. He pretended to be kind to me but secretly pampered Song Qinghwan in the mansion he had set up for her. When I discovered this, he looked at Song Qinghwan with disgust and said, No, you don't understand. I've hated her for so many years. Making her remain unmarried and lose her freedom is the best revenge I can give her." Yet the so-called revenge he spoke of was to hide his mistress in a golden house, building that mansion with such opulence and extravagance. Song Qinghwan's food, clothing, and living expenses were even better than those in the palace. When I realized something was wrong and wanted to divorce him and return to my parents, he revealed his true nature. whispering to the young emperor that my family had colluded with the enemy and betrayed the country, leading to my entire family being beheaded and displayed in the streets, dying miserably in the snow-covered streets. Pity my mother, who spent half her life in the freezing cold of Nanan City with my father. Pity my father, who remained loyal to the end, only to die by the sword of the country he loved most. Pity my brother and sister-in-law, who were shunned and cursed by everyone. Their unborn children never got to see the world, dying in the womb. I went mad with grief and tried to beat the drum to seek justice. But I was stopped by people sent by Song Qinghwan and left to kneel and cry until my tears turned to blood. Pei Zhe remained indifferent. But without the protection of my family, what does it matter if Pei Zhe is the regent? The court is in turmoil, and I was kidnapped by his political enemies in the court to threaten Pei Zhe. He laughed and said, "The daughter of a traitor can never compare to the imperial throne. She should have accompanied the traitor Lin family to hell long ago. Now it's the perfect opportunity to make way for the princess. She should be the empress, setting an example for the entire realm." At that moment, I realized that Song Qinghwan had always been the bright moon in his heart. And I, the obtrusive childhood friend, was meant to die in the chaos of a palace coup, so as not to obstruct his path to ruling the world with Song Qinghwan. Fortunately, heaven took pity on me and gave me another chance to start anew. They killed my entire family and caused my tragic death. In this life, I have crawled out of hell, and I will make them suffer 1,000 cuts and have their bodies torn to pieces. I arrived at the gates of the Pei family alongside Shuangwen. Pei's father held the rank of first minister. Upon reaching adulthood, Pei Zhe was bestowed the title of Star of Literature, and was adored by all the women in the capital, enjoying unparalleled glory. Now, with his entire family's assets confiscated, the people of the capital gathered to witness the scene of the Pei family's downfall. Sighing with sorrow, Pei Zhe was speechless. His shoulders drooped slightly, his cold eyes flickered with a faint gloom, and his thin lips pressed tightly together, looking utterly defeated as if he had suffered a severe blow. The imperial guards tore down the family plaque from the Pei residence and threw it to the side of the road. "Miss, why did Lord Pei have to go through this? After years of studying in poverty, this is the fate he meets." Shuangwen had been with me since childhood and knew everything about Pei Zhe. We attended the same school and studied under the same master. He studied day and night, and the most he ever said was, "No, no. I want to be a good official like your father and protect the common people." The memories abruptly ended, and a chill crept into my heart. This isn't enough suffering for him. This is just the beginning. Before the imperial guards took Pei Zhe away, he saw me. His face lit up with joy, and he shouted excitedly, "Lin, no, no." He struggled with all his strength to break free from the guards and rushed toward me, shouting, "Nua Nua, please help me. Help the Pei family. If your father, General Lin, is willing to speak on our behalf before the emperor, the Pei family can be spared from exile." His eyes pleaded earnestly, and he said frantically, "You don't want to see me end up on the streets, do you?" I gave a cold smile and withdrew my hands without expression. The light in his eyes gradually dimmed. Before he could say anything else, a luxurious golden carriage stopped at the gate of the Pei family. A beautiful young woman stepped down from the carriage. Her eyes sparkled with arrogance, her expression half closed, and her cold gaze swept over me and Pei Zhe. I'll make this clear: anyone who dares to plead for Pei Zhe is declaring war on me and my mother. Song Qinghwan was the only daughter of the empress and the emperor's most beloved princess. Spoiled and capricious, a single word from her could decide a person's fate. As soon as she appeared, everyone present hurriedly knelt down to pay their respects. I stepped aside to bow, my gaze fixed on Song Qinghwan. In an instant, a scene from my past flashed through my mind. Song Qinghwan lay in the hammock Pei Zhe had woven for her with his own hands. Her clothes half open, her seductive eyes brimming with triumph. She said to me. You never expected it. Did you? Paisé has always loved me the most. To save your entire Lin family from death, all I need to do is whisper a few words in his ear, and it will be done effortlessly. What's the point of being his legitimate wife? In the end, you'll just be the biggest laughingstock in the capital, enduring your husband's disdain. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stop the chaos in my mind, and smiled gently at Song Qinghuan in front of me, this humble maiden. Lin Nuo has never thought of pleading for Lord Pei. I hope the princess will not hold it against me. Hearing this, Song Qinghuan snorted coldly, at least you know your place. Without another word, she gave the order, and the imperial guards surrounding her immediately pounced on Paisé, pinning him to the ground. Paisé's face turned deathly pale, but his bloodshot eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at me. Nuo. Why, refuse to help me? I lowered my head and whispered. I dare not offend the princess. Besides, I know you are skilled at poetry and painting, and you have beautiful handwriting in the capital. If the princess saw your writing, she might forgive you and even plead for you. For the first 10 years of his life, Paisé devoted all his energy to his studies. It would not be an exaggeration to call him a bookworm. It wasn't until later, when I was personally trained by my father, that he became the cunning and resourceful regent. So I took the opportunity to hint to him to continue writing in front of Song Qinghuan, hoping she would be completely captivated by his talent and charm. Paisé's eyes sparkled as if he had received a brilliant plan. He excitedly shouted, Princess, I have never lied to you. I truly have excellent calligraphy and painting skills. Song Qinghuan sneered. All right. Since Lord Pei is so skilled, why don't you let this princess take a look? Before long, the servants placed the brush and ink in front of Paisé. Paisé was overjoyed, spreading out the white paper and beginning to paint. He believed this was his chance to turn the tables. Little did he know that the real show was yet to come. When Paisé finished the last stroke and set down the brush, Song Qinghuan revealed an admiring expression, murmuring in admiration. This painting truly captures my heart. Pei Ling's hands are also deeply in tune with mine. Hearing this, Paisé's eyes lit up, and a faint smile appeared on his previously cold face. If the princess likes it, it is the greatest honor for this servant. He then poured all his effort into painting, gripping the black brush tightly, exposing his left hand with its prominent knuckles before Song Qinghuan, hoping to captivate her completely. But he did not know that Song Qinghuan, who had not yet reached the age of marriage, had been influenced by the crown prince in her childhood. Deep down, she was a sadist who enjoyed torturing palace maids and eunuchs, and dismembering parrots. She had a fetish for hands, and her favorite pastime was using a small hammer to crush people's finger bones and collect them in her painting studio. Humph. Paisé, in your previous life, you schemed and plotted to become the regent, even if you eventually ascended the throne and became emperor. So what? In this life, I will make you witness how your path to revenge is shattered by the very person you once loved most. Song Qinghuan's gaze grew increasingly cold and ruthless. She tugged at the corners of her lips, raising an icy smile. Bring me my heart-piercing hammer. Paisé looked at her in panic, confused. But he couldn't speak before the imperial guards pinned his hands down. No, princess. I don't know what I did wrong. Please forgive me. It was too late for him to say anything now. Song Qinghuan clenched the hammer in her hand and struck down with all her might. The blow shattered Paisé's little finger bone. A piercing scream rent the air. Paisé broke out in a cold sweat, his eyes turning bloodshot. His once clear gaze grew cold and ruthless, and his fingers clenched into fists. At that moment, Paisé's gaze locked onto mine. In that instant, the terrifying memories of my past life surged like a tidal wave, leaving me breathless and nearly toppling over. Zay's expression had changed. I clenched my fingers tightly, suppressing the shock and doubt in my heart. Seeing his agonized expression, Song Qinghwan curled her lips into a satisfied smile. She enjoyed hearing the agonized screams of others, the sound brought her comfort. Thus, she raised the flowing heart hammer once more, intending to strike another finger bone. As she raised her hand, Zay's pupils contracted, and he growled, "Wait!" I furrowed my brows and quietly observed Zay's expression. Zay slowly raised his head, his bloodshot eyes fixed on Song Qinghwan, staring at her calmly. "Princess, these hands of mine are of great use. I can completely cure the birthmark. Does the princess have any need?" Every word Zay spoke was a test, and within that test lay a hint of certainty. Song Qinghwan had a small birthmark at the corner of her eye, which she always covered with thick makeup to hide from others. In secret, she had spent a fortune searching for the best doctors in the world to remove the birthmark with medicine, but every attempt had failed. At that moment, I was certain of my thoughts. Zay was the same as me. He had also been reborn. Mentioning this, Song Qinghwan's expression darkened. She instinctively raised her hand to touch the corner of her eye, but upon noticing the stares of those around her, she quickly lowered her hand. Song Qinghwan's face was even more grim than before. She clenched her fists tightly, her face filled with icy intent to kill. "Act now!" The Imperial Guards immediately understood her meaning. With a flash, the swords at their waists gleamed, their tips pressing against Zay's neck. Zay remained calm, showing no signs of panic. His aura was far stronger than before, and even his gaze carried a sense of intimidation. "Princess, if you kill me, you will never find a skilled physician." Hearing this, Song Qinghwan's expression grew urgent. She impatiently asked, "How do you know?" Before she could finish, Song Qinghwan immediately shut her mouth. Zay remained calm in the face of danger. He bowed his head, his tone sincere. "When I was young, I accompanied my father to the palace and had the honor of meeting the princess once." Lying! Zay was clearly lying. In his previous life, after keeping Song Qinghwan in his private residence, he discovered the red birthmark on her face. He deceived me, claiming it was to help an important advisor, forcing me to stay up late developing a salve to remove the birthmark. He was a hypocrite, full of lies. "All right. This princess gives you 3 days to present your so-called formula. If it truly works as you claim, this princess will personally plead for mercy for the Pei family before the emperor." Upon hearing this, Zay secretly sighed in relief. This servant will not disappoint the princess's trust. Song Qinghwan snorted coldly and, supported by her maidservant, boarded the carriage. Before leaving, the princess warned Zay once more. "If you break your promise, it won't be as simple as losing your hands." As soon as the princess departed, the crowd of onlookers dispersed. Zay knelt on the ground, enduring the intense pain, and stood up. I glanced at Shuangwen and turned to leave. "Lin Nuo." Zay called out to me. He stumbled forward, blocking my path. "Nuo Nuo, you must have a way to cure the princess's birthmark, right?" I narrowed my eyes. A plan forming in my mind. A clever scheme that would kill 2 birds with 1 stone swirled in my head. I would make Zay give up everything, sacrificing the entire Pei family to atone for his sins. "You've been practicing medicine with the old woman for years, you must be able to heal the princess." "Lin Nuo, we've been childhood sweethearts, you'll save me, won't you? You'll save the Pei family, right?" I tugged at the corners of my lips, forcing a smile. "I can save the princess, but her red birthmark is innate and cannot be completely eradicated. Using potent medications might cause side effects." Upon hearing this, Zay smiled. His brows and eyes betrayed a sense of ease. completely unconcerned by the side effects I mentioned. He must have thought I was just scaring him. After all, in my previous life, I had dedicated myself to saving lives, and my prescriptions had never gone wrong. No, I trust your medical skills. But he didn't know that I had also been reborn. Based on my memories from my previous life, I began researching the ointment formula. I added a potent herb to the ointment, one that could cause the skin to swell, turn red, and itch. At first, applying it wouldn't cause any issues. But if applied in large quantities, the herb would seep into the flesh and bones, and the side effects would be impossible to eliminate. This was akin to a deadly poison. The princess holds a high position and wields great power, while I am merely the daughter of a general. I cannot handle the princess alone. It would be better to use Paisé's hands to deal with her. But I also know that once the poison takes effect on the princess's face, Paisé, that treacherous villain, will certainly not spare me. Even if the princess comes to settle accounts with him, Paisé will surely drag me into it as well. By then, I'll be unable to escape blame. Therefore, I must prepare for all possibilities. I locked myself in the pharmacy for 3 days, giving Paisé the impression that I was working diligently. On the 3rd day, I took out the ointment I had prepared and placed it in the palm of my hand. Paisé reached out to take it, but I dodged him. Paisé, I can give you the ointment, but will you take me with you to the palace? To avoid arousing his suspicion, I added, I've never been to the palace before. My father has always been in Nanan City and rarely returns to the capital. Even if he does, he wouldn't bring me along. I've always wanted to see the imperial palace. He was now highly suspicious and cautious, clearly more vigilant than before. His eyes betrayed a hint of suspicion. Perhaps I had acted too innocent. Or perhaps it was because of the ointment that he had to compromise. Paisé agreed to let me accompany him into the palace to deliver the medicine. But once inside, he only allowed me to wait outside and refused to let me accompany him to the garden to meet the princess. I knew his true intentions. He wanted to keep the benefits to himself. After all, if he cured the princess, he would not only earn merit but also gain her favor. I pretended to know nothing and let him arrange everything as he pleased. But as soon as he left, I went to the Taiha Hall, where the Empress Dowager often went, based on my memories from my previous life. In my previous life, after Paisé became the regent, he often moved around the palace. As his legitimate wife, I also frequently appeared in the palace, so I was very familiar with the layout. I pretended to bump into the Empress Dowager, who was admiring the peonies outside the hall. She was coughing violently, her chest rising and falling sharply. She covered her mouth and nose with a handkerchief and coughed incessantly. This was clearly a coughing fit. Suddenly, she coughed so hard that her cheeks turned red, and her body shook uncontrollably. The Empress Dowager could barely stand, swaying dangerously. The palace maids and eunuchs around her were in a panic. Quick! Call the imperial physician. The eunuch scrambled toward the imperial medical office. The Empress Dowager nearly fell to the ground but was caught by her personal nurse. I hurried forward. The nurse by the Empress Dowager's side immediately blocked me. Who are you? How dare you intrude into the Hall of Supreme Harmony? Get her out of here! At the old nurse's command, the guards nearby immediately approached me. I hurriedly identified myself. I am Lin Nua, the daughter of General Lin Wei, who commands the garrison of Nanan City. My gaze fell on the Empress Dowager, who was on the verge of fainting, and I quickly pulled out my silver needles. As a physician, I always carried silver needles in my sleeves. Moreover, I had come prepared this time. I have been studying medicine with my grandmother since childhood and have some knowledge of medical arts. May I examine the Empress Dowager's cough? A look of suspicion flashed across the Empress Dowager's face. She coughed violently, and blood could be seen on her handkerchief. The old nurse was startled and urged, "You useless fools! Where are the imperial physicians?" My heart sank. The Empress Dowager's cough must have been lingering for some time. She trembled and pointed at me. "Let her try." I followed the group of nurses into the hall, took her pulse, and administered acupuncture. This could only provide temporary relief, not a complete cure. I helped alleviate her chest discomfort and oxygen deprivation caused by the cough, allowing the Empress Dowager to gradually regain her strength. As her condition improved, her expression softened. This acupuncture technique truly makes me feel light and refreshed. "You are indeed Lin Wei's daughter, I recognized you at once," she said. "Your eyebrows and eyes resemble General Lin's greatly. No wonder the Empress Dowager agreed to let me treat her. Your coughing is likely due to an underlying condition from your youth. If I have the opportunity to return, I can bring you a prescription that should at least alleviate your discomfort." Upon hearing this, the Empress Dowager smiled, her eyes and brows radiating the grace of her youth. In my memory, the Empress Dowager passed away after the old emperor's death. Since her health had always been fragile, and she was deeply grieved by his passing, she followed him in death. I calculated the time and took the opportunity to arrange a date with the Empress Dowager. After all, I had saved her life, and she now held me in high regard. After leaving the Hall of Supreme Harmony, I went straight to find Paisé. Before I even approached the Imperial Garden, I heard Song Qinghwan's commanding voice ring out, "I give you 7 days. If there's no effect within this week, I'll take your life and have your entire Pei family buried with you." I tugged at the corners of my lips and smiled slightly, fingering my fingers. I calculated that it wouldn't even take 7 days. 3 or 4 days would be enough to see results. Just wait. Paisé. Back at the mansion, I focused on studying medical texts, diligently researching herbs to treat coughs. I wrote down a prescription to alleviate the cough, folded it neatly, and tucked it into my sleeve. I waited for Paisé to come knocking. It wasn't until the 4th night. Shuangwen knocked on my door and entered. "Miss, when did you offend Mr. Pei? He's been knocking on the door for ages, demanding to see you." Shuangwen helped me dress while complaining. I begged him to leave several times. "Our miss is an unmarried maiden, how can she possibly go out to meet him?" It was thoughtful of Shuangwen to consider me so much. "It's fine. What's the harm in seeing him?" After all, I had waited so long for Paisé, and this day had finally come. I told Paisé to wait for me in the guest room. As soon as I entered, Paisé's face was dark, and his expression betrayed the anger simmering beneath the surface. He turned away, coldly facing his back to me. I remained calm, sipping my tea, already anticipating his purpose for coming here. Something must have happened to the princess. Last time I went to the palace, I bribed someone close to the princess. Someone just reported that her face is itching unbearably, and she scratched it until it's bleeding. Paisé suddenly turned around, his handsome face betraying a look of anxiety. He suppressed his emotions and asked in a low voice, "Is your prescription incorrect?" It seems he wasn't too stupid after all. He had already taken precautions and planted spies around Song Qinghwan. In case of an emergency, they could give Paisé time to escape. But how could I let him get away? "Mr. Pei, the fact that the princess's face is itching means the medicine is taking effect. Don't you trust me?" Paisé would naturally believe me. After all, in my previous life, I accidentally cured the red birthmark on Song Qinghwan's face. "Lin Nua, are you really not lying to me?" I suppressed the curve of my lips and looked at him with an innocent expression. Paisé gradually dispelled his doubts. But he still didn't trust me. He told me to accompany him to the palace during the day to see Song Qinghwan. Song Qinghwan's carefully nurtured appearance had deteriorated, and early in the morning, The imperial guard summoned Paisé to the palace. This time, Paisé voluntarily brought me along to see her. In the hall, Song Qinghuan rushed straight toward him. Before Paisé could speak, she slapped him hard across the face. Smack! The loud slap echoed through the hall. Paisé's face turned dark and cold, filled with icy hostility. You kept saying the ointment was fine, but this princess couldn't sleep a single night, wanting to scratch my face raw. This is all you're doing. Song Qinghuan had trusted Paisé for two reasons. First, he was the eldest son of Peidarin. Second, she dared not tell the emperor, fearing he would blame her for being overly suspicious and for treating an insignificant illness. Therefore, she did not have the imperial physician examine her again and applied the ointment directly to her face. Now that something had gone wrong, Song Qinghuan could only turn to Paisé. Paisé remained firmly convinced that the ointment was fine. Princess, I dare swear on my life that the ointment is absolutely fine. This is just a normal reaction, it will heal once you endure it. Song Qinghuan narrowed her eyes and gave a cold smile. Do you really think this princess would believe you? After speaking, Song Qinghuan glanced at the person beside her. The servants immediately summoned the imperial physician. Dr. Fong, please take a look at the ointment. Just looking at the milky white ointment, the imperial physician couldn't discern anything unusual. He asked Paisé to write down the prescription for confirmation. Paisé was highly literate and possessed an extraordinary memory. He carefully wrote down the prescription based on his memory and handed it to the imperial physician. This medicine was personally formulated by me, it cannot possibly be wrong. Paisé's confidence made me smile involuntarily. This prescription contained herbs that were absolutely not suitable for the face. Those in the know understood this. However, after reading the prescription, the imperial physician's expression suddenly changed. Xinyu grass? The imperial physician slammed the prescription down and knelt before Song Qinghuan in a panic. His kneeling caused Paisé's smile to vanish instantly. Divine shadow grass must never be applied to the face, it will cause unbearable itching that cannot be cured. Few people knew of divine shadow grass's other effect. It causes the skin to rot. However, the imperial physician had only guessed half the truth. When combined with the orchid flower, divine shadow grass becomes highly corrosive. When applied to the face, it causes intense itching in the early stages, followed by gradual skin ulcers. The imperial physician immediately pointed at Paisé and shouted angrily, "How dare you! You dared to harm the princess!" Upon hearing this, Paisé's expression darkened. His gaze swept over me, and his eyes were filled with cold, ruthless hatred. But he had no time to dwell on it. Song Qinghuan touched her cheek, her expression nearly collapsing. Her eyes turned red, tears welling up, and she trembled as she pointed at Paisé. Someone immediately disable his hands for the princess. Paisé knelt down with a thud, his tone neither humble nor arrogant, coldly saying, "Princess, I am guilty." He bowed his head, voluntarily admitting his mistake. I should not have deceived the princess for my own selfish desires, claiming I could heal. I am merely a scholar, how could I possibly practice medicine? The one who truly knows medicine and can prescribe remedies is Lin General's daughter. Lin knew all. Good. Paisé directly betrayed me, using me as a scapegoat. But his cleverness backfired. Did he really think I came here to be his fool? I stepped aside and bowed, glancing at Paisé and softly rebutting, "Though I know a little medicine, I have never helped Paisé. Please discern the truth, princess." Song Qinghuan was in a rage and didn't bother to look at our argument. To her, it was all the same. Cut the tendons in both their hands. I'll see how long they can keep arguing. After speaking, the eunuchs from Song Qinghuan's palace stepped forward and pressed me to the ground. Song Qinghuan pulled out her flowing heart hammer and walked toward me step by step. I calculated the time in my mind. slowly tightening my fingertips. Just as Song Qinghuan was about to strike, a eunuch's voice echoed from the door, "The Empress Dowager has arrived." The Empress Dowager was my protector. I knew Pei Zhe's character and was certain he would betray me. Therefore, I had already met with the Empress Dowager beforehand and established a good relationship with her, distancing myself from the entire incident. This way, the only one who would be injured was Pei Zhe. Seeing me being held down, the Empress Dowager's displeased gaze fell on Song Qinghuan. "Qinghuan, release Lin Nua at once." Though Song Qinghuan was puzzled, she dared not disobey the Empress Dowager's order. After releasing me, the Empress Dowager's expression softened. "Recently, if it weren't for Nua Nua saving me, I would still be bedridden and unable to see the light of day." I had made an appointment with the Empress Dowager and told her that if she didn't see me by then, she should come to Song Qinghuan's palace. Although this was somewhat presumptuous, I had saved the Empress Dowager's life and had also provided her with a prescription to alleviate her cough. When I took out the prescription, Song Qinghuan's expression changed. "You wretch! You failed to harm me, and now you dare to harm the Empress Dowager? Do you want to die?" Hearing this, I pretended to be frightened and knelt down, presenting the prescription with both hands. "This servant has never intended to harm anyone. If you do not believe me, please have the imperial physician examine the prescription." Song Qinghuan was about to say more, but was stopped by the Empress Dowager. "Investigate." The imperial physician hurried forward to examine the prescription. He carefully examined each ingredient in the prescription, one by one, and was so impressed that he exclaimed, "Marvelous! Absolutely marvelous!" With each exclamation, Pei Zhe's expression grew darker. Every ingredient in this prescription is perfectly balanced, especially the last two. Not only do they stop coughing, but they also moisten the lungs. We can use this prescription to prepare the medicine. Miss Lin, your medical skills are exceptional. You would never make such a mistake. The imperial physician personally verified it, not only clearing me of suspicion but also pushing Pei Zhe into the spotlight. Pei Zhe's expression changed, and he hurriedly denied it. "Lin Nua, you did this on purpose. Everyone knows you made the ointment. You deliberately shifted the blame onto me." I smiled lightly, a hint of confusion flashing in my eyes. "Mr. Pei, who are they? Do you have any evidence?" Pei Zhe couldn't produce any evidence. Apart from Shuangwen, no one else knew. Pei Zhe trembled slightly, unable to speak. I pressed further. "Since Mr. Pei has no evidence, why are you slandering me?" Pei Zhe was speechless. All the evidence pointed to him. What else could he say? Song Qinghuan was furious. Her eyes filled with anger. "The Empress Dowager is unwell. Today's matter will not be blamed on Miss Lin. I will personally deal with Pei Zhe." As the son of a traitor, the Empress Dowager naturally wouldn't take him seriously. The Empress Dowager ordered the imperial physician to fetch medicine and coughed twice. After sending the Empress Dowager away, Song Qinghuan's suppressed anger erupted completely. "Pei Zhe, you dare to attempt to harm this princess. Bring someone. Cut his tendons immediately." Song Qinghuan summoned the imperial guards, who restrained Pei Zhe, leaving him unable to move. Cold sweat poured down Pei Zhe's forehead as he struggled in vain. A blow from a club shattered his right hand, rendering it useless. The sharp, bone-piercing pain made Pei Zhe roar in agony. "Princess." I smiled lightly. Would calling Song Qinghuan now do any good? "Pei Zhe, does it feel good to have your right hand severed by the woman who once loved you most?" Song Qinghuan is a madwoman. Her torture chamber isn't just filled with heart-piercing hammers. Every form of private punishment must be inflicted upon him. When the imperial guards severed his tendons, Pei Zhe's agonizing screams echoed throughout the palace. Unfortunately, no one would save him. Lock him in the torture chamber. As long as this princess is alive, he shall live a life worse than death. I will make him beg for death but deny him the mercy of dying. Thus, Song Qinghwan imprisoned Pei Zhe in the torture chamber. Every day, he endured the agony of rolling needles and whippings, with his right hand shattered bone by bone. Pei Zhe was tortured to the point of wanting to die, only to be doused with cold water and forced awake. Day after day of torture had long since drained him of all vitality. He was bound to the torture device, his hands and feet shackled with iron chains. Song Qinghwan appeared before him once more. She carefully covered her face with a veil, fearing that anyone might see her true appearance. Her eyes were filled with hatred, and her murderous gaze fixed on Pei Zhe. Do you know how badly you've disfigured my face? She gripped the torture tool, its red-hot branding iron repeatedly heated over charcoal. Song Qinghwan's maniacal laughter echoed throughout the torture chamber. I have to endure the pain on my face every night, like ants crawling on my face. It's so itchy and painful. Do you understand? The pain I endure, you must endure as well. After speaking, Song Qinghwan raised the branding iron. The red-hot iron plate was terrifying. Pei Zhe's eyes widened instantly. His lips twitched slightly as he explained in a hoarse voice. Qinghwan, it wasn't me. The person who concocted the ointment for you was Lin Nuo. She has been the one harming both of us from the very beginning. She was the one watching us fight each other. It was too late to say any of this now. Song Qinghwan couldn't hear a word. Her eyes were bloodshot, and tears glistened in them. No matter who it is, you deserve to die. With that, Song Qinghwan pressed the red-hot iron plate against his face. Instantly, Pei Zhe writhed in agony, his screams of pain deafening. Ah! Amidst the screams, Song Qinghwan's laughter rang out, almost mad. My beauty is ruined. And you won't live either. I'll kill your entire family. You didn't know, did you? After being exiled, I had all of Pei's family killed. Pei Zhe's eyes filled with tears, and a fierce expression gradually emerged. But he was bound and unable to move. Even if he harbored unbearable hatred, what good would it do? I don't care about Pei Zhe's life or death. I sent a letter to my parents in Nan'an City, urging them to return to the capital immediately. The time of the old emperor's death was drawing near, and once the palace policies changed, if my father couldn't return in time, he would inevitably face the same dilemma as in my previous life. The Lin family must secure their position in the court first. But my letter had only been sent out for 2 days when my father had already returned to the capital. Their arrival filled me with both shock and joy. I rushed to them and embraced my mother, sobbing uncontrollably. Fortunately, in this life, my mother and the others were still here. You child, haven't you gotten too close to that scoundrel Pei Zhe? Hearing my father's worried question, I wiped away my tears. Father, please rest assured. Your daughter will never trust a traitor again. Before I could finish speaking, I sensed something was wrong. I suddenly looked up, my eyes wide with shock. First at my father, then at my mother. You. Pei Zhe dared to accuse the Lin family of treason and colluding with the enemy? It's a joke! My father's words made everything clear to me. It turned out that they, like me, had also been reborn. I was overjoyed and talked to them for a long time. When my father learned that I had also been reborn, he was greatly surprised and asked me about their lives after being beheaded. Father, in my previous life, Pei Zhe became the regent, holding all the power in the court. He plotted a rebellion, disregarding the lives of the people, oppressing them, and allowing corrupt officials to abuse their power for personal gain. Officials protected one another, and the people lived in dire poverty. My words caused my father, who had been in a good mood, to furrow his brows. Everyone in the Lin family looked serious, their brows tightly knit. Later, Zé ascended the throne and elevated Song Qinghuan to the heavens. Father. If the uneducated young prince becomes emperor this time, our Lin family may end up like we did in the previous life. Upon hearing this, my father's sharp gaze immediately fell on me. He narrowed his eyes. His interrogating gaze fixed on me. He dismissed everyone else and had me enter the study. Then I looked at him resolutely and said, "Rebellion." When I said those words, my father took out his ruler and slammed it heavily on the table. Say that again. Once the old emperor dies, the court will be in chaos. The only way to change this situation is to rebel, kill the new emperor, and overthrow the dynasty. I knelt down before my father with a thud. Father, the young prince is only 12 years old. Even if Zé cannot rise to become regent, there are countless others like him in the court. Who wouldn't want to hold absolute power and manipulate a young emperor whose mind is still immature? My father threw down the ruler and shouted angrily, "Get out!" My father stayed in his study for a day and a night. Before he had even left the study, news of a great event reached the palace. The old emperor had died of illness, and the empress dowager had died of grief. The young prince was about to ascend the throne. Finally, my father, holding a long sword and clad in armor, walked step by step toward me. As an old general, I have defended Nan'an City for years, repelling enemy invasions. I did not seek office or the throne, but only served the people. Since there is karma from a previous life, the ruler is not the ruler, and the common people suffer. Perhaps. My father's weathered eyes filled with sorrow, and he choked on his words. He raised his sword high and roared, "Follow me into the palace." My father led tens of thousands of elite soldiers into the palace. My brother and I fought our way into the inner palace and burst into Song Qinghuan's chambers. Song Qinghuan's face was covered in scars, and her festering wounds were disgusting. She clearly hadn't expected me to be here. "How dare you? Lin Nuo. You dare to break into the princess's chambers? Have you lost your mind?" I pointed my sword at Song Qinghuan's cheek, the tip slowly tracing her face. "So what if I did? You're now a princess of a fallen kingdom." Song Qinghuan's expression changed. She stared at me in shock and shouted back, "Impossible. Even if the emperor has passed away, it's not your turn to seize power. Do you think the Song family is all dead?" I curled the corners of my lips into a faint smile. The Lin family holds the military insignia and has guarded the borders for years. Every member of the Lin family is a fierce warrior. What do you think you have left? Song Qinghuan didn't believe a word of it. She was on the brink of collapse, tears the size of beans slowly falling down her cheeks. She screamed, "What about my younger brother? Once the new emperor ascends the throne, every member of the Lin family will be executed along with their entire clan." Calculating the time carefully, my father must have already cleaned up the scene and obtained the imperial seal. "Report." The soldiers at the door rushed in urgently and knelt on one knee. "The young prince has passed away. Congratulations to the eldest princess." The old emperor had fought for the throne for many years, and there were few princes. The former crown prince had been murdered, and only the young prince could inherit the throne. But now the young prince had taken his own life. The Song family was completely ruined. Hearing this, Song Qinghuan's eyes filled with grief and anger, and tears streamed down her face. "Impossible." I slashed her cheek with my sword, and blood spattered everywhere. "I forgot to tell you. Zé was right." I stabbed again, and blood dripped onto my fingertips. I wiped it off calmly and smiled lightly. The ointment was made by my own hands. Song Qinghuan stared wide-eyed, her lips trembling, and collapsed weakly to the ground. I didn't even bother to look at her again and shouted loudly, "Welcome the princess to Bin Tian." Soon, my brother dragged Zé, who looked like a corpse, out of the torture chamber. He had been tortured until his skin was torn open and his flesh was a mess. Both his hands and feet were broken, and he lay on the ground unable to move. Seeing the character slave branded on his face, I laughed even harder. Ha ha. This slave character suits you perfectly. Paise's gaze was fierce enough to kill. His hateful and resentful eyes fixed on me. He clenched his teeth and shouted angrily. Lin Nua. You're also reborn, aren't you? Smart. It took such severe injuries for you to wake up. That's a bit too late. I smiled pleasantly and nodded. How does it feel to be betrayed? Upon hearing this, Paise erupted like a wild beast. He was filled with rage but lacked the strength to act. His hands were so weak he couldn't even lift his sword. Lin Nua. You've ruined me so badly. I hate you. He crawled on the ground, disheveled and filthy, bearing no resemblance to the former regent's majesty. Due to the intense emotional turmoil, Paise coughed up a mouthful of blood. Hate me? I turned around and slapped him hard across the face, gripping his jaw tightly, staring at him expressionlessly. Paise, what right do you have to hate me? You killed my entire family, leaving the Lin clan to die in the snow-covered fields. What right do you have to hate me? This is all karma. Your death. The death of your entire family, it's all because of you. Blood trickled from Paise's lips as I roughly pushed him away. He had an overwhelming desire to survive. He wanted to live, to seek revenge. Paise weakly grabbed my sleeve, his lips trembling as he pleaded in a low voice. No. I was wrong. Please forgive me. The matters of the past are over. You have already avenged your family. Can you spare my life? No. Why should I spare a source of trouble? I thrust my sword into his body, and blood spurted everywhere. He groaned softly and dropped his head lifelessly. This sword strike is to avenge my entire Lin family. I stabbed him again, piercing his heart, gazing at him with icy eyes. This sword is for my own revenge, for feeling that I was not worth it. Paise, you deserve this. I stabbed him repeatedly, the smell of blood and gore filling the air. I washed my hands clean and ordered the servants to throw their bodies into the mass grave. The new emperor ascended the throne. My father was crowned emperor, seated on the throne, receiving the homage of the masses. My older brother was promoted from general to grand general, leading his family to continue defending Nanan City. I was appointed regent princess by my father, able to participate in court affairs. Years later, under my father's governance, the people lived in peace and prosperity, with no enemy nations invading. Amidst this peaceful atmosphere, no one remembered this shameful past. However, compared to wielding power in the court, I preferred to travel the land, experiencing the diverse aspects of life and the hardships of the common people, all to ensure they could live a truly good life. For in my view, as a ruler, one must understand this truth. The people are the foundation of the nation. The end.